on.
Welcome, everybody, to the Chinchilla Pickin' Podcast. It is June the 30th, 2024, 4:24 p.m. As always, we hope to be entertaining, educational, and uplifting because we want everyone to make money. My name is David Underwood, and I'm joined by the one and only Brandon Beaver. Brandon, how has it been, man? It's been 2 weeks.
Well, the question is how's your shoulder? Because it's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks on that, and
Yes, I jokingly have told a couple of my people on through text, I'm the winter soldier now because I got my metal pieces in my left arm. So I'm Bucky, if you will. So if that's a Marvel reference, if you don't watch Marvel, I'm sorry you missed the reference. But yeah, no, the surgery went well. I am out the other side of the surgery. I'm recovering. That first week was awful. If you ever have shoulder surgery, the pain is intense, and intense doesn't give it justice. That pain is awful the first few days. Awful. I'm a big guy. If you guys don't know, I'm probably about 300 pounds, 295. At least I was before surgery. I got some fat on me, but I also got a lot of muscle on me. So I'm just a big overall guy, and I was suffering. I was suffering. That was awful. So yeah, but I'm glad to be past that part of it and now into like the more relaxing recovery part of this phase here and try to get my shoulder back on track. Thanks for asking, man.
no problem. They starting you on physical therapy or anything like that?
No, I'm not allowed to move. I'm meant to keep my arm in a sling and move it as little as I possibly can for 6 weeks. In order to do the surgery, they had to actually cut a tendon and completely sever it in order to make the surgery happen because they had to open up my arm, go in there, remove bone, put in metal parts. And so they sewed that tendon back up, and they need that tendon to completely heal back up. Otherwise, I'll have other problems. And so I can't move my arm for 6 weeks while that heals.
Gotcha.
So I'm one-armed man for 6 weeks, but it's all good, man. Thanks. It's all good. I don't know if there's any Dallas news. Sorry, man. I mean,
No,
season,
I mean, that's no football going on. There's
right? So no sports. Wimbledon's going on. Wimbledon. I've been watching Wimbledon. That's been fun. I love Wimbledon. That's a great sport, tennis. I watched the Netflix special on tennis. I've watched a lot of Netflix specials as I've been laid up on the couch with nothing to do. But yeah. So lots of fun things happen in there, and the heat's kind of relaxing a little bit, not as hot anymore. So
I mean, it's still terrible because it's still Ohio humid.
yeah, it is. It is here in Ohio. Yes, you're right. You're right. But I mean, things are moving on, man. I mean, we don't have a big cicada rush here like some other places had recently the past month. We're having pretty calm weather. No, I think they said they had one hurricane starting in the Atlantic already. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but
Hopefully
that's always a concern this time of year.
Yeah. Got a lot of friends and family in Florida, so
there you go. There you go. I don't have any friends and family in Florida. I do like to visit. Last time I was there, I went to Miami, and that was fun. So,
Florida's a good time. I like Orlando, Destin Beach, Palm Island, all good stuff.
I'm thinking about heading to Key West in the winter, in January, February. You know, but I tell you what, guys, if you're listening right now, Brandon, I do want to make the Berkshire Hathaway Conference next year. So you're going to be there. Please let us know. DM us, reach out to us. We'll meet up. We'll have coffee, lunch, whatever. I have family in Omaha, so it's going to be a good time. I went to high school in Omaha, so I know Omaha.
Yeah, I regret not going when Charlie Munger was still alive.
That was I think the height of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Greg Abel, he'll be a good fill-in. He was this year, so.
He was, and Warren even called him Charlie this year. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get into it here. Rules. Brandon and I get together 5 to 10 minutes before the show, and we tell each other what we're going to talk about. You hear the live back and forth, the bicker and the banter right here on the show for you. Like always, Brandon's going to take it away. Brandon, Lead us out, man.
Oh man, Nike earnings. When you're looking at Carnival, they've been doing well for the past year. Dick's Sporting Goods doing well for the past year. Um, Hoka doing well for the past year. Adidas has been okay. You would think Nike would follow suit, but no. And we covered another apparel and shoe company last week. I think I talked about Under Armour and the changes that they're making. And you would think that with a big player in the game not doing so hot, that Nike would be able to take some of the market share back, but no, it's not the case. On Friday, they had the largest drop since I think like 2001. It was the largest drop in actually the stock's history. The second one was back in 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. Wiped out approximately about $28 billion in shareholder value on Friday alone. And the catalyst for this was that they had a reduction of 2% in quarterly sales, which ended May 31st. And now they're even expecting a year-over-year decline of 10% in sales for this fiscal year. 10% drop. On top of that, they've got restructuring fees going on around $400 billion, which are going to hit the stock for the year as well, because they're looking at restructuring, trying to, place a turnaround, put a turnaround in effect. They've laid off 2% of their workforce. Not going so well for Nike right now at all. And we've had a couple of reasons for this. There's been a couple of reasons why Nike has spun off track. 2020, everything was going well. We had a situation where everybody was returning to the outdoors, running, working out in their house and stuff. They were buying shoes to run. Nike was on top of it. For some reason, they kind of spun away from the running game, though. So we've got a bunch of running conferences, and I found out today, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Dave, but like the capital of running is Beaverton, Oregon.
I did know that. So just before we go any further, I have a brother and sister who both ran track and cross country in college and high school, and all growing up. My father ran track in high school and college. I come from a huge track and field family. I know so many statistics about track and field. I would work the long jumps and triple jumps and everything else while they would compete in these events. So Beaverton, Oregon, yes, because of Oregon U, because of Nike, because the Nike founder was an Oregon coach. I could go on and on about. I want to hear what Nike is saying, not you, what Nike is saying for these losses, because that's going to dictate what I'm going to say next. And I want to hear what they're saying these losses are coming from, because I have a couple of follow-up questions depending on what you say.
Well, let me give you this real quick, because these runners conferences that happen quite a bit in Beaverton, Oregon, some of these runners are saying they used to see Nike all the time leading into 2020. It used to be like a pretty constant presence there. But they've seen them twice in the past 4 years. Meanwhile, they've gotten to know the Hoka representatives and the other shoe brand representatives pretty well. And Nike just not focusing on the runners anymore, and Hoka and some of these other shoe companies have taken market share from Nike as a result. The other thing is that Nike stopped focusing on runners, and they started focusing on sneakerheads. So instead of releasing the running shoes that they used to release, they started releasing Air Jordans and the special releases aiming towards.
Okay, so
And by the way, there's a lot of people who collect these Air Jordans who pay a lot for them, but it's not working out in Nike's favor when they're losing sales here.
so here's the thing with the sneakerheads. You got probably, and this is just me estimating. I have no actual data or stats behind this, so let me preface it with that. So you probably got 20,000 actual sneakerheads that have real money.
Right.
20,000, right? The rest of them are living paycheck to paycheck. They're sneakerheads, but they live paycheck to paycheck. And if we have downturns or recessions or anything like that, then Nike's going to get hit hard because they can't continually buy the Nikes. And that's typically the demographic This is facts. The demographics that Nike is going after with these sneaker heads. However, if you go after athletes such as runners, they constantly go through shoes. They need those shoes to perform their profession or whatever sport they're doing, whether it's college, professional, or what you. They need those shoes. They don't have a choice. That's part of their non-discretionary income spending that they have to make. That's a more stable environment than the sneaker heads, if you will. And in regards to showing up to events, let me give this example. I worked for a company once, and I'm not going to mention names. And I was sent off because of Native American lineage and ancestry and what have you. I was sent off to a Native American event to recruit for this company. And I showed up to recruit, and I met some of these other people from these other companies, and one of them was the USDA. And I asked them, I went over to them, I said, hey, how well do you do at these recruiting events? And they said, well, we show up to every single of these Native American recruit events around the country, to where now over 20 almost 20% of our new hires come from these events, because it was engineering and science and achievement for Native Americans. And I said, really? He goes, yeah, we don't even have to worry about it anymore. We just get them all in because we're consistently showing up to every single one. And that let me know right there firsthand that it makes a difference when you show up to every single event that people have, and you put the time and effort in. All the people in that community recognize that, see that, and they want to be a part of that.
Yes. So there's an an age-old adage in retail: you meet the customer where they are.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
you were doing there is you're kind of doing the same thing. They're employees,
Yep.
future employees, but you're meeting somebody where they're at. Nike forgot this. They completely forgot it. So they stopped showing up to the shoe running, or to the running events. Not only that, but they started saying, "Hey, we're going to go more direct to consumer from our warehouse," and they pulled out of retail. Not completely, but like they pulled a lot out of retail and just started doing online only stuff. They got cocky, is what I'm saying. And they almost 100% completely pulled out of wholesale. So what's that do? On the, if you're walking into a wholesale store or to a retail store, to Payless Shoes, to Dick's Sporting Goods, to wherever, there's less Nikes there. They're going to fill the gap with something. There's going to be more, Hoka's, Under Armour, what have you, whatever else. Nike's lost market share because they stopped meeting where the customer, they stopped meeting the customer where they're at. And Dave, you're not going to believe this, but they also blamed the pandemic for disruptions in supply chains 4 years
It's
later.
2024. You
I
can
know.
stop blaming the pandemic
I
on
know.
if you're a major corporation like Nike, you have no right to blame the pandemic on anything that happens right now this year. How's their apparel sales? Is this just shoes only that hit this bottom line and caused that drop in sales, or is it all other apparel sales as well?
I mean, it looks like it's apparel too, but this is mostly shoes that they're giving up.
Mostly
Market
shoes
hair
that they're
share,
losing
yeah.
in, and
Yeah.
in sectors like the running, you're saying is where they've lost ground.
Right. So here's a quote from somebody who does these running things in Beaverton, Oregon. He said, "In 3 years I've led this group, there's only been 2 Nike road demos. I've seen the Hoka rep at least 4 times just this year."
See, yep, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
So the performance for the quarter fell short of the 1.6%. And by the way, that's anemic in itself, but 1.6% growth that was anticipated by analysts. Um, Over the last 12-month period, sales increased by a modest 1% when you take currency out of it.
So hold
So,
up. Top line number revenue increased by 1%, but what has inflation been at over the
but,
last
but,
year?
but so then if that, yeah. So, but then also if you look at the real number, the top line decreased because the increase here of what I just said, what was that, 1 or 2% or something like that? That's
Yeah,
only if you take the currency effect out of it. Now, put the currency effect in, they've actually lost on sales.
gotcha.
This is the slowest growth the brand has experienced in the past 14 years, excluding pandemic related declines in 2020. So they did have net income rise by 45%, but that was because of cost cutting measures, including headcount reductions. So they're including cutting costs and laying people off and all of that. But what that doesn't include is the severance costs that they're going to have to pay out, which they're looking at when they said the restructuring costs, and they said like I think it was like $400 billion or something for the year. Most of that severance.
Yeah, so not a lot of people understand this. How much it costs to let groups of people go, like thousands of people go at once, because typically a company will give them a severance package, and that costs a lot of money. And that just goes to show you that the number one cost of doing business anywhere in the world is your payroll, is people. That's the number one
Yeah.
cost.
So he didn't really, from what I saw and what I heard, John Donahue, the CEO, didn't really give any specifics here, but an odd comment. He said that expect the next innovation cycle to begin next quarter. So one of the biggest things that the critics are levying against Nike right now is that they stopped innovating. The runners like the Hoka shoes. There's more cushion. Um, Back in 2017, Nike released a running shoe like the Alpha or something like. I don't remember what the name of it was because I don't have it in front of me. But there was a shoe that was released. They said that the shoe actually was so good it gave runners an unfair advantage that had it. And ever since then, they haven't really been in the running game. They completely forgot about it. And
Which
so
is
people,
weird because this year is a Olympic year, and this is the one year that you want to be in the running game so that you can really get a boost in sales from the Olympics, from athletes wearing your shoes on the world's biggest stage for track and field that they get every 4 years. Track and field doesn't get any more exposure than it does on Olympic year. This is the year you want people wearing your shoes, and the fact that they're not going to be wearing Nike shoes is huge.
it used to be Nike's ball game. This used to be their territory.
Yeah.
So I don't get, and then one thing that I don't understand is why are we waiting till next quarter for the next innovation cycle to begin? You guys just stop innovating for 3 months? Is this a cycle? Like we're gonna do it for 3 months for a quarter. That's the innovation cycle, and then we're gonna go take a nap for a year. I don't. What is the? I don't understand that
And you need
concept. The
you
next innovation cycle begins next month. You announce nothing. You told us nothing about what you're going to be doing, and then you say it's going to start next month. Why not now?
I want to wait and see if there's any Nike commercials this Olympics, because I'll be watching the Olympics and I want to see what they kind of put out there.
So, from what I was reading from analysts, Nike has mentioned the innovation cycle before, and when they've done it, the next 3 years has been great for them. So, we'll see if it happens this time. But I don't know what that cycle even looks like. It's not clear. Clear as mud, Dave. Clear as mud here.
Clear as mud.
So
I'm
here's
taking notes right now. Innovation cycle on Nike.
Yeah, so here's the thing about this stock. Globally, this is the largest apparel brand in the world, one of the most recognized names in apparel. When you say Nike, China, Korea, Africa, wherever you want to be on, and in the world, no matter what, people have heard of Nike everywhere you go, right? So the brand value is there. So Dave, you got to ask me if I want to buy this stock or not because I'm not. But if you're going to ask me if I recommend other people to buy it, eh,
Yeah,
which
all
leads
right.
us into the argument that we're about to have.
Yes. Yes. But I'm glad that you're willing to come out and say, I'm not going to say yes or no on this. And
Anytime I'm neutral, I don't buy because why would I buy something I'm not excited about?
yeah, but neutral. So, all right. Let me preface by a couple things. If you're a new investor and you're listening right now, I'm going to explain a couple things what goes on in the investment world on CNBC and Fox Business or Bloomberg or what have you. Anytime they have an analyst come on, they ask them, what's your position on this going forward? And it's either a buy, a sell, or a hold, which is a neutral, meaning don't do anything. If you own it, just hold it. If you don't own it, don't buy it. And that's a neutral stance, right?
Yes.
So my feedback for Brandon, right before this was literally 20 seconds before we went on the show, was I was going to call him out on this, and this is what I said. And I call myself out on this as well. Is on the show we'll spend 10 minutes here talking about a company, but then we won't give you listeners what I feel you want, which is Do I do a put? Do I do a call? Do I buy this? Do I short sell this? What's going on here? And it too many more times than not, it's a neutral on this position. Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. And it's like, that's not a good answer. And that's not fair, is what I was saying. And I wanted to challenge Brandon on this is like, let's give a more clear answer to this. And having said that, Brandon, do you still want to stay with the rating that you're giving
So
Nike?
here's my thing, my personal bias, by the way. I absolutely love the re-releases of the Air Jordans, and I absolutely love the special edition sneakers. They're super cool. I always want to buy them, but you have to throw the special, the biases, the personal biases have to go out the window because this strategy isn't just not growing sales for Nike. So I don't want to say sell at this point, Dave, because they're down so much. It was 20% drop for Friday. If you're down on this 75%, I just want you to kind of hold it. And if you believe in a turnaround story here, maybe add to it. But I can't buy it. If you're not in the stock right now, I cannot buy this stock, knowing that the CEO took over in 2020, and he's the one that enacted all the changes that got us to where we're at right now.
Yeah, the stock hasn't done great since 2020.
And that's when he took over, by the way. He took over in 2020.
Right,
He
yeah,
took over then.
I just don't. So I just don't want to give our listeners more of the same. Like, I just don't know, or I don't know, too much more to be unseen, or I don't want to give our listeners. I want to give them the actual our thoughts and feelings here. And this is why sometimes I'll do even day calls on Instagram. If you go back, it's posted out there. It's dated. It's timed. You could call me on it. Go out there and look at our Instagram feed. I've gone on our Instagram. I said, buy this today. You're going to sell it here today as well. And then I reposted in the comments, sell right now. You would have made over 10%, yada, yada, yada. Or I'll do swing trades. I'll post on Instagram. Hey, buy this for a swing trade, or on this podcast, buy this for the next couple of weeks. Here's the reasoning behind it, yada, yada, yada. And I do that so you guys can learn how to make money as well. So as far as Nike goes right now, I'm saying because of the Olympics and because it just took a gap down, I would say buy, not for the long term though, unless they get rid of the CEO.
Trade it.
I think the long term there's weakness, there's too many headwinds, but I feel like because of the Olympics, Nike will get a jump in sales this next quarter.
On a technical basis, it's probably oversold. And since you said this to me before we started the show about giving these ratings, I was very defensive, and now I'm coming around to your point of view and starting to agree with you here. I'm not touching it because I'm a long-term value investor, right? And there may be a jump here just on a valuation basis. It's got a 20 price to earnings ratio right now, but earnings have been hit really, really bad. So that in itself, in a way, in itself is neutral. That's not a good value at 20. It's not great for a company like this that's so mature and is looking at a 10% decline on the top line of sales over the next year, right? I'm not paying 20 times for earnings when I'm going to get negative 10% over the next 12 months. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not buying it. I'm not touching it. There may be a bounce on it just because it's short-term oversold. But over the long term, I have not seen a consistent, clear growth strategy out of this management to make me buy this and hold this.
Yeah, since the CEO has taken over, this stock is down 13%. I just pulled it up. I have no faith in this CEO, but I do have faith in the Olympics.
By the way, hold on,
Olympics
one second.
Are huge.
Sorry, say that one more time. I talked over you.
I said I have faith in the Olympics, and the Olympics are huge, and that's why I say they might get a jump up this quarter. There might be some favoritism, favorable buying of it due to those events. I see a jump up in the short term. By short term, I'm talking less than 2 months, and then I would take your profit and get out.
Down 14% since the guy took over. 4 years of gains wiped out.
Yeah,
not good.
100%, not good at all.
Yeah, you know what he needed to do? He needed to come out there and say, we're going to use artificial intelligence to make our shoes better. And then the stock would have flattened out.
Go into AI then. So
all right.
I know that's what you wanted. That's why we transitioned. That was nice.
I sound bearish on artificial intelligence. I'm not. I'm just sober. And there's a difference.
You're not drinking the Kool-Aid everybody else is on AI, right?
No, no, no. I see where the growth is going to come from. I think, right? There's going to be some surprises. There's going to be some letdowns. I like companies like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, the companies and Google, by the way, that have data because they can use the artificial intelligence to sort through this data. We had a
Like
huge
X
problem.
has tons of data.
Right. We had a very very big problem going into this artificial intelligence thing with data, and we started collecting so much data on everybody that you just literally couldn't discern it. It was too much. These data centers that popped up, all the data that Meta had on people, that X had on people, and so on. It was just too much, and most of it was useless. But now, I think that the future for artificial intelligence in this arena is to sort through it and make it useful. So the big data companies, that's huge. Advertising is going to be huge for artificial intelligence. Defense and IT security, all that stuff's going to be great for artificial intelligence. Gaming is going to be good for artificial intelligence, but we just don't really know where all this stuff's going to come from. Dave, this is such a big hype right now. Artificial intelligence accounted for about 30% of the S&P 500's gains this year. And
I,
the way I came up with that, if you look at the big ones, Nvidia, Amazon, Meta, Apple, and Google, 30% of the S&P 500. Take the AI hype out of it. I don't know that we're in the cycle that we're in right now.
but I mean, AI is a reality, and as far as Nvidia goes, that's actual sales, that's actual numbers that Nvidia is posting out there. Now, granted, we are expecting them to continue this growth quarter over quarter, and you and I have gone on the show and said I don't know if they're going to do it ahead next quarter, and then they end up doing it. So Nvidia's proved you and I wrong more than once, but they you know there is actual sales behind Nvidia's numbers. The other ones, it is more of the potential, what they're capable of doing. Like Google has so much data, Meta has so much data, X has all this data of individuals and what individuals do and how to use that information to create these AIs and make them smarter and better. And that gives you a good aspect of like, okay, these companies can use this if they do it the right way. As far as Apple, heard you guys last week on Apple and making fun of the VR headset. So here I am to talk about VR and AI. Um, First of all, when Apple released the Vision Pro, those people walking around with those Vision Pro headsets were paid influencers, and they were just doing that for show. Most of them were not actually in any kind of programs while they were walking around doing that. That was just paid influencers doing what they do. So that quickly faded because they kept getting called. If you read in the comments of all those people, they all got called out for it. And then when the Vision Pro was showing what they can do, like having the different screens in all the houses, if you read in the comments of all those social media posts, what you read was had all these people who had VR before that saying, my VR set can already do this. And the common pushback, because how trolls love getting in these comments, the common troll back was, it sounds to me like Apple has a great marketing team and the rest of you VR people don't. And
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
think
that's
that's true.
true.
Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
absolutely true. Now let me rephrase this because I actually said this wrong. Nvidia alone contributed to 30% of the S&P 500's gains. Now,
Okay.
if you
Yeah, that
throw
makes
in
sense.
Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon, you have for well over half of the S&P 500 gains year to date. That's crazy. That's wild.
It,
That's
it,
hype.
it it's not good to have that much all in just a handful of companies,
Yeah.
because now with
So,
those handful of companies, that means America is overweight the FANG stocks.
yeah.
America is overweight these stocks. And we need to not be. We really need to pull back some of our positions.
They've announced another $100 billion to invest in data centers and artificial intelligence. So just looking at Amazon and what Meta's going to do, looks like Nvidia sales are going to continue to grow for right now. But look, these companies are just buying any and every artificial intelligence chip that they can get their hands on because they want to be the first to whatever is next. And I don't even know that they know what's next.
Can you, at this point, can you call it an oligarchy?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know oligarchy. I don't know if you want to say that. You mean monopoly? Like a
No, an
monopoly?
oligarchy is where a handful of individuals who own the biggest companies in that country actually control the economy of that country. There's an oligarchy in Russia, there's an oligarchy in other countries of the world, and the oligarchs are the billionaires that walk around, and there's only a handful, a small group of companies, and they control majority of everything that happens
You think
within that
I
country.
I mean, I think that Dave, you're going to force me to be political here. I think our government wants it to be an oligarchy. I think that because I think they want control of Meta. I think that's why you see Meta in Congress all the time getting grilled by senators and congressmen on a constant basis. They're
Gotcha.
public enemy number one. These other companies have been public enemy number one too. So I don't know if it's an oligarchy, but I think that there's some people that want it to be.
Yeah, might make it a good investment then. Cool.
I mean, maybe, but $100 billion from Amazon. Dave, here's how hype this is. Here's how much hype this is. Okay, we're combining our two favorite hype phrases here. There's a European company that I was just reading about right before this show that said that their goal is to put artificial data centers in space.
Nice.
It said it'd be
I mean,
great
our
for the environment. So it's,
our orbit around the United States is just going to be packed. It's going to be like Wally, packed
I
with
know.
satellites here shortly.
Yeah, but
If
but
we
are they
continue this way.
really? My red flag goes up when this is, are they really, is that really what they're going to do? Or are they just saying
No.
that to try to, because they're worth, the company that I was talking about, I don't remember the name of it, but they're apparently, they just got valued at $14 billion. And they
Oh, of
said this
course.
on, they said it on an investor road trip. So
So they hold up. They come out. They say they're going to put AI data centers in space. Now they're valued at $14 billion. When actually this is another Virgin Space debacle here,
yeah,
where it's overvalued. They're going to get the loan from the company, another Silicon Valley Bank company, and they're going to get that $14 billion loan. But the company's only worth like maybe 800 million. Then they're going to blow through the money, not know what to do, and then they claim bankruptcy. And now the people who are holders in that bank are the losers in this battle, and I don't like it.
yeah, I know. And
It's
then the
bad
CEO
news.
is probably going to sell a bunch of stock in the meantime and make tons of money for
Yeah.
himself. Yeah.
I'm doing a cryptocurrency that's based on AI. I'm going to throw it out there, guys. So you go ahead and buy it. It's going to be worth $14 billion.
That's all I've got, by the way.
All right, cool. Moving on. Um, I have a number of things here, but I want to cover one thing, and I think this is my number one thing I want to cover this week. So, the last time I was on the show 2 weeks ago, I talked a little bit about, and I did. It was actually 2 weeks in a row. I've covered minerals and commodities and around the world, the geo environment of handling these. And I've been covering nickels. I've been covering mining uh, lithium and other metals and everything. And I even bought Rio Tinto as a buy, which has only went up 1% last week, but I bought it last week. And I put the wrong ticker on Instagram, by the way. I need to put a correction on Instagram for the right ticker. But um, I bought Rio Tinto and did 1%, and that was great. So there's a real battle right now globally going on about trying to find these minerals that are going to produce these batteries and these environments. And we saw this due to COVID. And when supply chain shut down, it was hard to get these things, and it was all centered out of mainly one country, China. So now, as far as competition goes, the EU, the United States are putting tariffs and regulations on China importing EVs, electric vehicles, and other such items into their countries because China is able to produce it at such a cheaper rate than they are. And so they're able to produce a cheaper vehicle and still somewhat be profitable, even though it's subsidized by the Chinese government. And China holds the majority of a lot of these minerals that we need in order to produce these. So I've been covering. It's been an ongoing story of mine on this podcast each week to cover mines in Australia and also mines in Serbia. So there's been a lot of movement into taking these mines and using it just for the regional area, such as the one I reported up in Montana and North Dakota about a month ago. And so there's this big, huge movement out there, right? So you're asking me, okay, Dave, we heard your previous podcast, we follow you, we understand what you're talking about. What's the news now? All right. Here's the latest news in this global position and chess match to try to control the minerals that's going on. This is a Reuters headline, came out yesterday at 10:49 a.m. Sorry, came out 6:29, June 29th at 10:49 a.m. The headline reads, China issues rare earth regulations to further protect domestic supply. So what they have done here is they've come out and the regulations issued by the state council or cabinet on Saturday say rare earth resources belong to the state and that the government will oversee the development of industry around rare earths, a group of 17 minerals of which China has in recent years become the world's dominant producer and accounting for nearly 90% of the global refined output. So 9 out of every 10 of all these minerals, 90% of all these minerals comes out of China. And now China is saying that these are going to stay in China and we're not going to let anyone else in the world have these. The EU demand is forecasted to soar sixfold in the decade to 2030 and sevenfold by 2050. The new Chinese regulations will take effect on October 1st, said the state council, and will establish a rare earth product traceability information system. So what are some of these things being used for? It's mainly going to be stuff used in chip making, magnets for EVs. It's going to be some of the biggest one. China's rare earths regulations also come as the EU gears up to impose provincial tariffs on EVs, Chinese EVs, on July 4th to protect this 27-block state from what it says is a flood of EVs produced with unfair state subsidies, something I've talked about for months on this show. This is a economical global war on these minerals, on these rights, and on EVs going on right now, being played out. And I'm covering it, how Serbia had closed that mine, and then they realized that everybody's taking positions, moving the chess pieces. They reopened the mine, and now Rio Tinto is able to mine out of Serbia and get those metals that they need for EVs. There's a countries like United States are relaxing code so that we can mine those mines in Montana because we realized that China's was going to do what they're doing now. Brandon, quick thoughts on this?
I mean, just another good example of something that should be a source of great wealth generation for the people of China and literally everywhere. I mean, the entire world. Stuff like this happens. You have people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and government have absolutely no inkling of any economic sense whatsoever, take over these mines and completely ruin it for everybody. And I shouldn't say everybody. They're top donors and favorite people and friends are going to make a lot of money, but now there's going to be a lot of people just completely shut out from this industry in China, and that sucks. What it makes me want to do makes me think more about investment in Taiwan. As long as we can keep China away from attacking Taiwan, but it also makes me think about India. Makes me want to
Yeah.
look into India. And I'm not saying I have because I haven't, but we're going to start shifting our focus away from China when it comes to manufacturing and when it comes to these precious metals, and other countries are going to be beneficiaries of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the position that the European bloc and the United States is really taking, is like, let's find other places where we can have cheap labor and build these products and do these things that China was giving us. And we may pay a little bit more, but you know what? In
Yeah.
the end, we're moving away from China because they're becoming very China first. They had gotten away from that after if you remember, I don't know if any of our listeners are old enough. I haven't done a demographic study of our listeners, but if any of you guys are old enough to remember Tiananmen Square, ever since then, China still went on a path of becoming more relaxed, and now I feel they're coming back and becoming more strict
Yep,
and more
yep.
China first. And so it's the global economy as far as commodities is very strict when it comes to, if China has the main share of it, the lion's share of it, it's going to be very hard to get, and that's going to cause those prices to be skyrocket up, which is why I bought Rio Tinto, and why last time I was on there, I said I was going to buy Rio Tinto. Well, I said I was looking at it, and I hadn't made the purchase yet. I did went ahead and bought it. Sorry, in our group chat, I went ahead and bought it, but it was I added it to my watches, and I did end up buying Rio Tinto, but that's because Rio Tinto is having these mines, and it's one play you can make on this. You can also start looking as who owns these mines up in Canada and Montana, North Dakota, those areas, and maybe make a play on buying those, because they, if China owns 9/10 of the supply, then the supply that's in those areas is going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah, yeah.
And thus those mining companies are going to be worth a lot more. So do your research, find out what companies those are, and buy them.
Yeah,
And
and this
for
it's
me, I
not
would just
just
say
a,
buy them now.
when we talk America first, we're talking about manufacturing and buying things here in the United States. And I, not really for America first, so to speak. And I don't want to get too political, but at least with America first, we're talking about buying things from American companies. I think it's not a China first policy, and they may say it is, but I think it's more of a Chinese government first policy.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, I get what you're saying, and I wasn't trying to go that route with it. I was just trying to explain why China is doing what they're doing and how it's going to affect everything else. So any of those minerals that's on that 17 mineral list that you could find anywhere else, the companies that own those mines, those minerals are now worth a lot more because China's restricting their flow. And
yeah.
so it's a play to make. It's a way to invest your money is what I was
Yeah.
going with it. But
Yeah, and their initiatives never really accomplish really what they want to economically. So for 10 straight years, starting really in 2010 when China started devaluing their own currency, and they were trying to make things, cheaper here in the United States for American consumers so that we would prop up the Chinese economy and buy China, right? That was the whole point of it. But the fact of the matter is they led themselves into a couple of recessions there by making things more expensive for their own consumers in China, and they helped keep prices down here in the United States for an entire decade, which led to an economic boom here. So
yeah,
it,
it did until COVID pandemic, and we couldn't get the
yeah,
supply chains going, and we couldn't receive the product from China. And that's
right.
what the ripple effect of that is, the moves that miners and countries are making now, which is let's build these plants here, because if COVID happens again, we need to make sure we have those goods here.
Yeah, circling back to them, I think this is going to be a different situation for sure, where I think prices go up as a result of China, and we're going to have to look for other ways of doing business.
Right. And so thus, back to my point, buy the mining companies that own the mines with these minerals that are
Exactly.
outside China. It's a good buy. Hence, I'm telling you how to invest your money to make money. Boom, the purpose of the show. And
Right.
so that is how I came to that conclusion. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks of me watching this, studying this, reading article after article after article. I just watched the Warren Buffett documentary on HBO Max. It's a few years old. It's not recent. It's a number of years old. But in it, it shows that Warren Buffett was sitting there and he was reading 8 hours a day of article after article after article and report after report after report. That's the same thing that, I mean, we don't do 8 hours a day, obviously, but Brandon and I do the exact same thing. And this is, I read all these commodities because I try to follow that because I know Brandon doesn't. So I read all these things on commodities, and I've come to this conclusion now, based after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of building up the story, that this is the play to make.
Right. Right.
So
And just piggybacking off of that, if you're going to be a good investor and if you want to learn, if you got the pursuit of knowledge for this kind of thing, then you're going to spend a lot of time on your butt reading.
yes, you will.
That's
All right, Brandon, you ready for the next one? This
yes.
one might be another debate here. Headline. I can't even say this without laugh. Sorry. This came out June 28th, 2024. I'm going to use this article to start the discussion that Brandon and I are about to have. I'm going to use this article to do it. So this headline came out on Friday at 12:41 p.m. And the headline reads, U.S. inflation cools in May, boosting hopes of a Fed rate cut. Let me read a couple of things from this article, and then Brandon and I can get in a discussion because we disagree on this. So it's talking about inflation. It goes in here. It gives a back and forth on this, right? So some of the quotes from the article are: "This was a very Fed-friendly report that should keep the September rate cut in play, while at the same time increasing investor confidence that moderate economic growth can be maintained even as rates stay higher for longer." That was Scott Anderson, chief U.S. economist at BMO Capital Markets. The reading came in and personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, was unrevised at 0.3% gain in April. It was the first time in 6 months that PCE inflation was unchanged. Goods prices fell by 0.4%. That's the biggest drop since November. There was big declines in prices of recreational goods, vehicles, as well as furnishings and durable household equipment. The price of gasoline and other energy goods dropped 3.4%, which I thought that was going to go higher. I got that wrong because I called that going higher because of the OPEC cuts, and everybody was saying that the overall global economy was going to stay flat, and so thus, gas. There wouldn't be there would be a big demand, but with the OPEC cuts, there wouldn't be a big supply. However, everything remained kind of in line there. So the price of gasoline and other energy goods dropped 3.4%. There was more drops. Moving on here. In the 12 months through May, the PCE price index increased 2.6%. And so that was a huge number, right? However, inflation continues to run above the central bank's 2% target. So 2.6, 2%, 0.6 away, pretty close. Financial markets saw a roughly 68% chance now that the Fed policy easing would start in September. So everybody's pointing towards September now. They're saying that this is these numbers that came out say in September, we're going to go ahead and get this rate cut in. There was one other thing. Oh, yeah. Consumer spending, because this is going to be a topic, Brandon, I go back and forth on. So I want to, this is from the article, not from me. Consumer spending, which accounts for more than 2/3 of U.S. economic activity, increased 0.2% last month after rising 0.1% in April. Spending was supported by 0.3% gain in services, mostly outlays on hospital care, housing, utilities, as well as air transportation. Services spending increased 0.4% in April as well. So yeah, there was an increase in the spending overall. Income at the disposable of households after accounting for inflation and taxes rose by 0.5%. Consumers saved more, lifting the savings rate to 3.9% from 3.7%. So an increase in households, everyday mom and pops, and more money in the bank for savings. That was good. There was no inflation in May, but there's also no indication that the kind of soft demand undermined by slower income growth the Fed believes necessary to keep inflation on low track. That was another quote by Chris Lowe, chief economist at FHN Financial. I know I just threw a ton of data at you, Brandon. I know I did. But go ahead, start the discussion.
Number one, I think that the past, I don't know, forever has kind of proven that these Fed target rates are arbitrary. I'm not even sure why they even come up with them. I guess you have to have a goal, but they never hit them. Even prior to COVID, they couldn't get inflation to cook out. They were below their targets prior to COVID for like almost a decade. So, and now we're above the target, and you say 2% is the target, right? And we're at 2.6%. That doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but we're 30% above their target. Let's put it like that. That makes it, it puts it a little bit more into perspective that it's about 30% off.
All right. So
number one, 2%? Are we going to go below 2%? I don't know. It
number
seems
one,
very arbitrary.
Yeah. Okay. Number one, the 2% goal was instituted around the early 2000s. That was not been a long-term goal of the Fed. That was a goal that was instituted around then. It's a goal that was talked about as a good goal to have, but it was not instituted as actual Fed goal until around the 2000s. Number two, I believe the Fed needs to have a range and not just a target. They need to have
Right,
a two to
right.
two. 2 to 2.5% or 1.5% to 2%, have a range so that
But
you can fall within that range.
but but do they? I see. If we just left this up all to the free market and we didn't intervene and do any of the stuff, where would rates be right now? Because that's where we would want them. Because that would be the economy's correcting itself, or the economy's doing just fine, or whatever. It would be self-correcting. We wouldn't
It,
need somebody, in a central bank telling us where interest rates need to be, because we would know.
right. And then you would have different banks having different interest rates and you would see a ebb and flow of that. Yes, I get you. I get what you're saying. Um, what I see here, I saw a number of different and actually some conflicted numbers. So the any money saved up from during COVID pandemic has officially been erased, according to this reports that came out this week. So we can no longer bring that up and talk about it. That's gone. Um, However, that savings number from the household savings number going up 0.2% is interesting. When I see, and this was a call out by Nick, because in our group chat, Nick called us out, and other people have called us out as well, which is, are they using a firm? Are they using other, pay, buy now, pay later type programs? Yes, there is a increase in that. And yes, they don't always report on credit reports. So we actually don't get to see the actual true numbers of how much is being used in that. I covered that a couple of weeks ago, that we don't see the true numbers, the exact numbers, because of the way that it's organized in the system there. But having said that, I see the savings number going up. So that tells me that, okay, maybe it's not all the household doing savings, but somebody sees that we need to save more and we need to put more away because we're not going to be able to keep this up.
Yeah. And saving will help with inflation if that's what people are doing. But I'd be interested in knowing, and we can go back 4 years to the pandemic, and maybe we look at this between now and next week and say, what's the savings rate for the past 4 years compared to inflation?
Okay.
And let's look at, the year over year and all that stuff, because inflation, if you look at prices from 2020 to now, we're up like 22%.
Gotcha.
So with inflation, I think that people essentially have more money, but the money doesn't buy as much as you want it to buy. And eventually you run out, and then that cycle starts again, because then you go into deflation and a recession. And that's what the Federal Reserve is trying to prevent.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's an overarching very, yeah, good way to put what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. Um, I'm in favor of I'm not in favor of, well, actually I am in favor of the rate cut in September if they do it, and hopefully that's the only one for the year. If that's the only one for the year, and here's the reason why: is everything's moving very hot, and we moved very fast all at once because we started late in raising rates, and the concern was that we moved so fast to catch up to everybody else in the world that when we did that, it's going to shift us into deflation. So that's still a possibility, which is why I'm okay with a small cut in September of 25 basis points, no more. And that's the only cut we have this year.
I want to see what next month's numbers bring, which will essentially be this month's numbers, because
Yeah.
everything retro, but
And then they revise it 2 months later. So I mean, there's all that.
right, right. So really, even looking at like a quarter's worth of information before we make any decisions, at least.
Look at the
Um,
GDP for the second quarter, right?
right. So if you look at the 1970s and stagflation back then, nothing moved in a straight line. We didn't just go straight from a great economy to stagflation and recessions and a decade of lost economics for the United States. We had, you know, ibs and curbs. We had bounces. We had good times. So I don't want to say good times, but we had times where we thought we were going to go back into prosperity, and inflation was tamed, and then it wasn't anymore. And so, it goes up and down. So we really need to look at like I want to say a good handful amount of months at least that before we start to think about making a decision about cutting rates.
And we're going to have that information before the Fed rate decision in September.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's because it could be more of the same, and what it's been for the past year really has been like up and down and up and down. Yes, we started the beginning of this year thinking, well, not me, but a lot of analysts and very educated people at the very beginning of this year started thinking six cuts. And now we're down to one and debating if we're even going to have one.
Some people said six cuts. You and I did not say six cuts. I said that we have a possibility for a cut by the end of the year. Currently still on that track. I also said that the stock market's going to be up for the year. Currently still on for
So
that track.
I'll give you
Those
that.
things are what I said. And you're right. A lot of analysts did get on CNBC, Fox Business, Cheddar, Bloomberg, all those big channels and say, hey, we're going to see a billion trillion. I'm exaggerating, but rate cuts every other month, and it never happened. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we don't listen to talking heads, right?
Right.
Um,
Hey, you're on my side now.
I still like the real time news, especially if you're a day trader like myself.
Okay.
Um, Brandon, final thoughts.
Other than, but like some of the stuff I see on CNBC, it reminds me of the View for financials. That's just it's just how I see it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Final thoughts, man.
Yeah, I don't like Nike. I'll just come out and say it. I guess I don't like Nike for the long term. Artificial intelligence does offer great opportunities for the future, but we're overshooting, I think.
Cool. What I got here, and I'm going to use this article in my last final thought here, is I'm going to make it as quick as I possibly can. I'm just going to really breeze through. I recommend you read this article. This came out on Friday at 6 p.m. and it's about the Fed stress test. There's a lot of articles out there about the Fed stress test. I recommend you, if you have time, Google Fed stress test in June. Start reading some of the things that came out about it. We didn't have time today to cover it, but the top U.S. banks are hiking dividends after they went through the Fed stress test just fine, right? And so they came out and then the Fed said, you're good, you're good, you're good. There was a couple issues last week with some of the tests they were doing, but then they ended up overall giving them a pass rate and everybody got a pass. Well, now since they had all
Everybody.
this money,
So
yeah, since
everybody did, even Wells Fargo, because I know what they do sometimes. If you don't get a pass, and you have to come back and do it again.
yeah.
And
So everybody had enough money saved up on the sidelines. A lot of people had more than enough. So what they're doing is a new dividend. Let me go through this list real quick. JP Morgan, they went from 115 a share, now they're going 125 a share. Bank America, 24 cents a share, now 26 cents a share. Citigroup, 53 cents a share, now 56 cents a share. Wells Fargo, 35 cents a share, up to 40 cents a share. Goldman Sachs, $2.75 a share, up to $3 flat a share. Morgan Stanley, 85 cents a share, up to 92.5 cents per share. So all those banks did extremely well, and they had more than enough money on hand. So what they're using is they're going to hike their dividend payment. And thus you're going to see a jump in the banks Monday morning, barring any other news that could cause that to go sideways. If there's no other news that I'm aware of, the banks should all get a nice little 1% jump up Monday morning pre-market based on hiking all these dividends. And that's going to be a good bounce, good start to the day on Monday. Looking forward to that. The stock markets are going to be closed on Thursday. It is a federal holiday, so July 4th, no stock market. Go enjoy your day. Go light off some fireworks, eat some burgers, eat some hot dogs, eat whatever you eat, and go enjoy the day. If you work, thank you for working because you're probably helping the rest of us have a great holiday, and we appreciate it. And I always try to say thank you to everybody who's working on that day wherever I go, if I'm meeting gas or something. So thank you.
if you're gonna pick a bank out of one of those, which one you picking? My pick's J.P. Morgan. It always will be.
Probably Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
Goldman Sachs. If I had to pick one out of that group, Goldman Sachs. So, all right. As always, we hope we have been entertaining, educational, and uplifting because we want everyone to make money. Have a good night.
Have a good night.